What's going on, everyone? This is Lucas from Deploy.software and now running a few SaaS tools like QualyoForms. And I'm very excited about this video because I will break down to you how I approach design systems on my own SaaS applications and when creating projects for my own clients. And I will be very direct and show you the step by step on how I create a preset inside shadcn, how I import that preset into Codex and initializing Next.js project and download all the components from the library, how to build a screen. So we're going to be building an auth screen with login and sign up. So we can see the design system in action. And then at the end, I will show you an exact application that I've used shadcn so we can look at the final product and how cohesive the design looks whenever we use these sort of libraries. So if you want to see that, stick to the end. And now let's get started. All right, so shadcn is the foundation for your design system, right? So it is a beautifully designed component that you can customize, extend, and build on, right? So these are all the components that we can essentially bring inside our projects, and every agent will be able to understand these components and use them whenever we are developing new features, right? So whether you're using Claude Code, Codex, Anti-Gravity, the process here is exactly the same. And what I'm going to show you now is how we can create a preset here and then import into our own projects, right? So we can come here to create, and the first thing that I want to show you here is that you can click on shuffle, right? So if you click on shuffle, it's going to show you different design systems. And here on the sidebar, you also have the option to change a few components and variables, right? So here you can change the style. So you have Vega, Nova, Maya, and you can see how these look, right? So the borders are going to change, the buttons are going to change, the spacing will also change. And so you can pick what's right for your project. And one thing that I've been doing as well, which has been really helpful for me for delivering projects to my clients, is directing the client here to shadcn UI first and let them select or create a preset. And by doing so, they give you the exact guidance on how they want their application to look. And by using the preset that they chose, you are able to develop an application that's very, very similar, or uses the same components that your client has seen and approved. And so the design process will be a lot smoother. Um, so here we can choose the style. You can check it out and see how they look different from each other. I'm going to choose Nova, for example, the base color. You can see how the color here on the graph changes as well. The theme, so that's the primary color that we're going to choose. I'm going to go with lime, and you have a few other options here as well. So we have headings, fonts, icon library, radius. Let's go with medium here, and then menu and menu accent. So this is something that I would be happy implementing on a client's project and a project on my own. You can check out all the components here. You have a page 2 as well, where you can see some more components. And this looks really, really good, right? You can see how the design is cohesive. All the buttons have the same radius, which is not something that we see when we don't guide our agents into creating designs. So now what we can do here is to click on Get Code. I'm going to be creating a Next.js project, so I'll leave that selected. For base, we can choose Base UI. I'm going to click here on Use Pointer on Buttons. And now we can simply copy the command on npm, right? So I'm going to go over to Codex, which is the agent that I've been using the most. And I'm going to create a new project here so we can start from a clean slate. I'm going to call this expensive SaaS. I'm going to create the project, and the first prompt that I would do would be something like, let's initialize the Next.js project and use the shadcn template below. What I want you to do is to download all the components from the library and initialize the project. And after you're done, I want you to run the project so we can see on the localhost. Right? So I'm going to paste the preset here. I'm going to send it over and I'm going to wait a few minutes to see what we get. All right, our Next.js project has been initialized with the 61 available shadcn components. So let's take a look at this localhost. For some reason, I'm not really able to see the site here inside Codex. I'll have to check why this is happening, but let's just move on to the actual browser. So let me copy this localhost link. Let me open the browser and let me run here. And now it says project ready. You may now add components and start building. We already added a button component for you. So we have the button and it says press D to toggle dark mode. So that's actually really cool. It's initialized and we have all the components. So what I would do now is to go back to Codex and try to build an auth screen or any sort of feature that we want to build using these components. So what I would do is to say something like, great. So what I want you to do now is to create an auth screen with login and sign up using all the necessary shadcn components that we have downloaded. So the user should be able to see an auth screen and have a tabbed menu where they can change from login and sign up. They should be able to see the necessary inputs and a button. So, we're taking the user to the onboarding or to the dashboard after. We don't need to implement any logic. We're not connecting Supabase right now. We just need to design the front end of our application. And please add a Google sign in and sign up button as well. So make sure to use all the components that we have downloaded and make sure to use the design system from the preset. Okay, so this is probably way longer of a prompt than what would be necessary, but I think it will do the job. So it's going to go ahead and create the login page for us, and we're going to take a look at how how it does and how it uses this design system to create a cohesive design on our project. And after this, you can use the same sort of prompt or the same logic to create other pages. You can ask it to create the onboarding. You can ask it to create the dashboard with the sidebar components, and then you can add the logic to your application. So let's wait a few moments and come back whenever we have the auth screen ready. All right, so here's the auth page that it generated. As you can see here, we have the tabbed menu that we asked. We can switch between login, sign up. We have the fields here. I can see that we have a problem here of spacing that it says or sign up with Google, and then there's not enough spacing in between the text and the button. So this is a good first try. It is actually using the preset that we've just downloaded, but I want to make things a little bit simpler, right? So I decided to add a card here overall, and then have this group here on the left that says a better way to begin the work that matters. I definitely want to remove this and remove this group that says your workspace stays private. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is to send another prompt and ask it to simplify things for us. So hey, what I want to do is to simplify the auth page by having the sign up and login group in the center of the page. So we can definitely remove the group on the left. There's not enough spacing in between the Google button and the text above. So make sure that the spacing on the card looks good. And we can also remove the group that says your workspace stays private. So just make that screen very simple and minimalist using the shadcn components that we've downloaded. Great, so I'm going to send that over and see the results. We definitely don't need to say every time that we want the agent to use the shadcn components. Ideally, whenever you are dealing with these agents, we'll always have the codex.md file or the claude.md file, which contains instructions that your agent will read every time. And so you can definitely add something there regarding the components that we want to use and the library that we're using so that on every prompt that you send, your agent will read that file and understand that it already needs to use these components. So we definitely don't need to repeat that every time. Now it's going to go over and make these changes, and we'll come back in a few seconds to review it. All right, so this is what we have as an end result. We keep the tabs, so login and sign up. You can see how the text here is dynamic and how we have used all the components from the library, right? This looks really good. You might say that it's very simple, but simple brings trust to products nowadays. I think a lot of the products have a lot going on. It has different colors, different buttons, different radii, and so some products you look at it and you immediately know it's AI generated. And the simplest products and websites are the one that are bringing trust today, right? So for example, if we look at the Stripe website, obviously it's $1 billion company, so it has some cool animations, it has some cool custom designs, but you can see how the typography is simple. They have a lot of white space. If you go to sign in, for example, you see that there's not a lot going on, right? It's going to sign in automatically, but either way, right? Very simple fonts, very simple logos, icons, and so on. Now, if you look at the Attio website as well, you can see the same pattern, right? So it's very simple, it's very clean. You might have some colors here and there highlighting tags, highlighting important information, but overall, just uses a grayscale, uses a lot of white spacing, and it is very, very simple, right? Check out the sign-in screen. It's just like a sign in with Google button and the input for your email. It is very, very simple. So now what I want to do is to show you a product that I've developed that's called QualyoForms. I've developed this using a shadcn UI library as well. So this will give you a good idea of what you can do using this library and how consistent you can get your designs into your own SaaS products, products for clients and so on. Right. So I'm going to be very, very simple here. I'm just going to show you around the product. And this is a product. It's a form builder for qualifying, people before they reach your calendar. This is made for agencies who have a lot of inbound interest, and they can't afford to take discovery calls with 100 unqualified people. So what I did here is to build a form that essentially uses AI to talk with people, instead of just having them fill a static form. And then at the end, we can qualify this lead and show them and either route them to the calendar or route them to a polite ending, right? So this is how it works, just so you can see. It basically is like a conversation. Hi there. This live form responds as you answer. What should we call you? If I say Lucas, right, it's going to generate the next question and it's going to be personalized. So thanks, Lucas. What is the best email to reach you? Now, landing page is very, very simple as well. I try to keep it minimalistic, and have, not as much going on, so people can really understand the product and see what it does. And it uses the shadcn components, as you can see, right? Let me go to the dashboard really quickly to show you inside the product. So we have a sidebar. This also comes from the shadcn components. Settings page, you can see this is very, very similar to what we would see here if we go to the shadcn website and then inspect the products. Of course, I'm using a different preset, but you get the point. And you can see how consistent every page looks, right? So for example, on settings, we have these tabs. And then if we go to, let's say, integration, for example, we have very similar tabs, right? We have just one button that is the main and the primary action of the page. And then we have secondary buttons, as these like white buttons here, right? Um, keep in mind that the shadcn library will give you a good indication and a good starting point for the UI design, but it's not going to solve all the UX problems, right? So if you just give it a brief prompt for your agent to create sort of a page without a lot of instructions, it's not going to essentially know every time the best UX practices. Like I said, keep just one primary button per page, so the user understands what this page is for exactly, right? Design is a language, it is a communication with the user. So you need to be able to guide them through the pages, and the pages need to be exactly clear. So if they land on the integrations, they need to know, hey, on the API, here's what I need to do. The only thing that I can do on this page is create an API access. Same here with the MCP, right? Um, Now on the workspaces, you can create some forms. Now we have some templates here. Just gonna choose this one so I can show you inside the form. We have tabs, and inside every tab, we have just one main action. So here, AI training, just give AI some context on what the form is about. Now we have analytics. We can export analytics. We can see analytics, right? We have integrations. We have form settings. You can see that we're keeping here the same brand design, the same design system, and the same consistency throughout the product, right? The user is not, jumping through the pages and exploring the product thinking like, wow, this page does not really look connected to the application at all. So just make sure that this is how we're designing applications these days, and using the shadcn library just makes things a lot easier for us. We don't have to think about all the design components because it is preset for us, and it gives us a lot more consistency, and we're able to generate applications using AI that don't exactly look like AI slop, which is extremely important nowadays. And with that being said, if you found this video helpful, just subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and if you have any ideas on future videos, something that you want me to cover, just please comment down below. I have a few ideas coming up, and so I'm excited for the next videos as well. So I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching.